one of the many movies that premiered in theaters this past weekend was the new horror film The Black Phone. In a Denver suburb in 1978, after a boy is kidnapped by a serial abductor and thrown in a soundproof basement, he finds a phone that connects him with the abductor's previous victims. This is based on the short story of the same name by Joe Hill. And I'm going to be totally upfront. I didn't expect to enjoy this movie as much as I did. This movie was very, very scary. It was very intense. And I feel like the thing that stands out to me personally about this movie the most is the fact that it juggles two horror elements at the same time. You have the child abduction horror element that made the movie feel very real. It made me feel like, that element made me feel like, oh shit, like, what if this happened to someone I know? Like, it made me worry about, like, you know, certain younger siblings walking home from school, like, you know, like, made me worry about, like, oh shit, like, what if this happens one day when I have my own kids? Like, that, like, this movie did a great job of planting that fear into myself. And I also loved how you infused that with the whole supernatural element, too. You know, I didn't know about that aspect going into this film. Like, I thought it was just the kid gets kidnapped and he tries to find a way to get out. That alone, too, was very freaky and it was unnerving, and there was just, like, some pretty startling imagery. And I remember some of that startling imagery making certain people drop their popcorn in the middle of the movie. But yeah, no, there are a lot of things there that caught me off guard, and I feel like both elements come together very well to make a lasting and unique impression from a horror movie point of view.
Yeah, for sure. And I was not the person that dropped the popcorn. All right, just want to make sure everyone knows this. I did not drop my popcorn.
You sure? Yeah, I don't know if dropped is the right word. More like threw in the air is probably a more accurate way to explain that.
But yeah, for me, this was actually, out of all the movies we saw this past weekend, this was my most anticipated one, because I love horror, I love the supernatural, and for me, I really liked this movie. I liked it because, like you said, supernatural, that's the biggest one for me. Anything supernatural, I somehow watch it at some point. And I like horror, and I like how they implemented, and this is, to me, this was a different type of horror. It wasn't horror in the sense of necessarily they were trying to do jump scares or they were trying to do those things. It was more almost just this psychological thing of what would happen if you were in a secluded area, if you were abducted by some random person, you were in this isolated brick, stone, concrete cubicle for days on end with limited amount of food. How would you have to survive and defend yourself? To me, this was like horror in the sense of survival, and they imbued the supernatural with the aspect of trying to get out, uncovering certain clues and etc. within his domain that he's in for the main character Finney to get out. And I really enjoyed the revelations, the how he was trying to get out, what happened, and the setbacks. It was engaging, it was thrilling, it was again, the jump scares are there. I was affected by it. I dropped my popcorn. But overall, I think this movie was honestly really solid. I do feel as if, though, I loved Ethan Hawke as, the villain, the abductor. However, it didn't feel as if the character had a lot of character development necessarily. Or at least, not necessarily development, but I didn't find a motivation. Or I didn't really see a motivation. So that was a bit, I would have to at least seen some of the motivation as to why of he's abducting these kids. But again, other than that, his performance was definitely a standout. He was absolutely amazing. He was definitely terrifying. So it was just like, geez, this man is brutal. And especially when you start uncovering certain things, it's just like, oh man.
Yep. And it's funny, too. Like, I'd never seen him in anything like this before. Maybe he's given some of the performances I just don't know about, but I loved seeing him in something like this. He was definitely a very intimidating force, and at least he felt very unpredictable. He was an unpredictable villain. And to kind of build on kind of sound off on the point that you made, too, as far as, like, a lack of motivation, like, that is fair. I I agree with you on that. Like, all we know is that, like, oh, he's abducting this kid. And I couldn't help but wonder, like, what is he doing with them? Like, why is he doing it? Why is he doing the things that he's doing with these kids? But overall, again, Ethan Hawke is very much a force to be reckoned with in this film. Props to him. And something else, too, the juvenile performances in this film as well are very, very strong. When I think of certain films, right, that the performances of younger cast members, right, just aren't there, you know, I think of, like, the standard that can be lived up to with juvenile performances like in this film. You have Mason Thames as Finney, the main character, Madeline McGraw as Gwen, his sister, who kind of has, like, a sort of supernatural, I don't know if presence is the right word, but, like, connections herself. And I feel like the two of them give very, very strong performances, so job well done on their
definitely.
part.
Like, they were great. Definitely felt the bond the brother and sister had for each other, and even Finney and one of his friends. Like I said, this movie I thought was really good, and again, I like the aspect of just, it wasn't a horror because of jump scare, it was a horror because of just isolation. You know, I think that's the biggest selling point of this movie. It's this isolation to the point of, one, social isolation, because we got a sense of how he was socially, and now physically isolation. And you have to deal with someone who's more powerful than you physically and taller. So it's like, if you can't handle yourself then, how are you going to handle yourself in this situation? And I love seeing that growth of him getting out of that normal comfort zone, getting out of that, becoming essentially, how I see it, someone who's more ruthless and willing to do what he needs to do to survive and to get out. And I love that aspect of this movie a lot.
Yeah. Overall, like, I feel like the execution from director Scott Derrickson, who also directed the first Doctor Strange film. I thought he did a great job in this film. Like, between, like, the horror, again, he meshes the two horror elements very, very well. There's a sort of grim 1970s aesthetic that, again, adds to that uneasiness that I felt watching the film. So this is a movie that I did not expect to enjoy as much as I did, but once I figured, like, I read certain reviews about it, I'm like, all right, you know, maybe this will be worth checking out. Maybe this won't just be like another generic horror film. So I figured it'd be worth talking about on the show, and I know you mentioned it a couple times too. So here we are.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I thought, like, you were going to go into the next topic.
Yeah. No,
but yeah,
good.
thoroughly enjoyed it. If you're a horror fan, recommend it. So.
Yeah. So, okay, for everybody, what are your thoughts on the Black Phone? Like, you know, we had a lot to say, and we hope you have a lot to say in that comment section, wherever it is that you can. And if you enjoyed this review, don't forget that subscribe button to tap and the bell to ring to get all notifications for more chats just like this one.